Katie, you're very welcome to the Creative Souls of Clare podcast. I want to start with a question that's been bothering me for some time. I've been meaning to ask you and never got around to it. Were you on Father Ted or some relationship with Father Ted, the TV show?
I was in Father Ted a couple of times. I did 2 days as an extra, so I was one of the lovely girls.
Okay.
Um,
Do you want to explain what the lovely girls were to anyone who maybe not? So Father Ted is obviously a legendary TV show, Irish British collaboration, I guess, with Channel 4, and it was a comedy and set with these kind of crazy priests on the island off the west coast of Ireland. So anyway, just for anyone that isn't aware, so you were a lovely girl. What was a lovely girl?
well, they had a lovely girls competition, and I suppose it might have been a skit on we'll say the Rose of Tralee, which is kind of a pageant thing that we have over here. And yeah, so I was one of the lovely girls. I had to parade around these cones with a load of other lovely girls, and they had to test our lovely laughs and all that kind of stuff. Actually, Father Ted was filmed locally, so it was filmed around Kilfenora. So loads of people that you see on Father Ted are all the extras are all local, which is really mad. You know, like
Yeah.
So there was a lovely girls competition. I didn't win it.
You didn't win it,
unfortunately. And there was another one. Do you remember the one where the priest talks Dougal out of religion accidentally, or he talks him, and Dougal decides to run off with the hippies and go to India?
No, I don't actually remember that one.
Yeah, so the hippie van pulls up outside the parochial house, and Dougal gets in, and they go off to India or whatever to find themselves. Hippie in the van holding a joint, going, come on in. That was me. It was a mad time. It was like hard to believe. Was it 95? Jesus, it's a long time ago now.
Yeah. But, and had you any interest or involvement in acting, or was this just a random thing that happened?
Weirdly, I was on the dole at the time, and weirdly, I did drama. I was in school in England, so I did my A levels, and one of them was in drama. So I was always always mad into that kind of stuff. And it just sounded like I needed the money. There was an advert in the Clare Champion saying extras needed for channel.
Yeah, and people wouldn't have necessarily known how iconic this was going to become.
No, we had no idea.
Yeah.
It's a cult. There's a cult following.
Yeah.
So I just 2 days as an extra, and then I did 2 days as an assistant trainee director. Sounds very posh, but I had walkie-talkie, and my job was to, when they were filming, what were they filming at the time? I can't remember. It might have been the Chinese people on Craggy Island. That one, cultural diversity. I had to keep all the extras in one place and out of the pub, but they were scattering and going to different pubs. There was 4 pubs at the time in Kilfenora, and I was going around with my walkie-talkie trying to round everyone up. Mad.
That's brilliant. I love it. And so when you said you were at school in England at the time, you were, from what I understand from at least your website anyway, you were born in England and then you end up at school in England. So tell me how England, Ireland and England, Clare, how does it all come into play in terms of your upbringing and family and roots and so on?
Yeah, well, my dad was a fiddle player, and he was both my parents are from Yorkshire. They met in London in the 70s, I suppose, the early 70s of that. And my dad was a fiddle player in a band called Dingle Spike, and they were quite big in the London Irish scene. I think Shane McGowan has cited them in one of his books as one of his influences, So he was in that band for a couple of years. And I suppose, I don't know how they met. They must have met on the scene at some stage.
Yeah.
But we used to come over here an awful lot when I was very small, and they used to come here in the late 60s. So when I was very small, I used to come over quite a bit. And then when they split up, my dad moved here and got married here. So I spent my childhood going back and forth between London and Kilfenora. And then when my mother retired, she retired early actually. When I'd finished my A levels, we moved to Kilfenora. She built a house, and I can put our roots down here. But it's always been home. I've always called it home, even though I'm not.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a very specific but often misunderstood identity, London Irish, in a sense, isn't it?
It is, but I wouldn't even be London Irish because my dad's from Yorkshire. His people are from Yorkshire. My mother,
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yorkshire, but she's adopted, so we don't even know like where we're from.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess I'm just thinking of not just London Irish, but the general British Irish or English Irish, because we have terms around Irish Americans. But I'm just thinking of my pal Luke Concannon, and his grandparents were Irish, but he was brought up in the English Midlands, musician also, but he's every bit an Irishman, if you know what I mean. And his father Kieran then moved back to live in Clare also. And there, I guess, like, the Irish identity is broader than often we allow ourselves to understand or accept even.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things going on at the moment where people who are Irish but not white are being, being told they're not Irish and they have no place here. And it's all to do with home and where it feels like home, where you make your home as well. Of course, we didn't have any trouble with that because we moved over when we moved over 95, and we were welcomed with open arms.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm delighted I moved here. I mean, my dad died 10 years ago, so I had a few years with him over here got to know him as an adult, as me being an adult, So
yeah,
we had some great fun times and got quite close.
And do you think the music was a big part of that kind of integration and settling?
Oh, like definitely. I've been playing music since I was about 11. And I grew up in London with the London Irish scene with the music. So like people from all parts of Ireland. So all the styles were intermingled in, we'll say, one session. So you can go to a Galway session in Galway and it's like you can nearly say that's the Galway style. And then there's definite Kilfenora style, which isn't even like an Ennis style. It's just Kilfenora,
Yeah.
So I had that. I had the wildness of the London kind of sessions, and then I was coming over here and I was sitting in with sessions with my dad, playing with members of the Kilfenora Ceilidh band. So two totally different, but immersed in it, from a very early age. And and Clare always felt like home to me. I think all through my childhood, it was in my head, I'm going to move to Clare.
Yeah. And do you think that has given you an awareness or an affinity with the whole idea of the migrant experience and that concept of home, and home perhaps being away from home or home being in a distant place? I'm just thinking of immigrants to Ireland from other lands, or even asylum seekers or refugees. Is that something that you draw parallels with?
Not with my own experience, because I have the advantage of
there's direct lines there, of course.
In a crowd, like but I definitely, like, I was brought up in a house of activism over in London as well. I could write a book about this, but anyway, I have a great. My mother was brilliant, and she is brilliant. But we've kind of reared up to see everybody as equal, and also to celebrate their diversity. So when you see, I mean, I came from London. We weren't struggling in London. We didn't have to cross in a boat with hundreds of other people.
Yeah.
We chose to come here. We didn't have to leave.
Yeah.
The way I see the difference between my privilege and other people's struggles to get here and find home, even though maybe in their hearts it doesn't feel like home because they're obviously missing.
Yeah.
Had to leave behind.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can make people feel welcome and give them some sense that they belong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, we're not.
No, not at all. And so can you talk to me a little bit more about that house of activism that you mentioned, and what were the conversations and influences coming to bear then?
Um, my mum used to be, before she met my dad, my mother was married to a guy called Aziz Pahad, and he was the ANC, the African National Congress, were in exile at the time, and many of them were in London. So I was brought up on picket lines, brought up on demonstrations. Sorry, Palestine Liberation Organization,
Yeah.
and anti-South Africa goods, that sort of stuff. But they used to have meetings in my mother's house. This is after split up, and I was around. I was a kid, but they used to have, like, we had to be careful because it could have been special branch sitting in the car outside. We had to be careful on the phone. I wasn't allowed to whisper a word to anyone at school about who was in the house, or, do you know what I mean? It was like, it was kind of a little bit to be careful, do you know. But the last president before Zuma was a man called Thabo Mbeki, and I have vivid memories of sitting on his knee. He so charming and just so lovely and great crack. In the middle of all this big, mad, like, heavy conversations, like, they had time to. I can remember him putting on my earrings, looping them over his ears, and that's from I don't have those memories as an adult. I only have from a child's, But that went on for a while until everything changed and people were able to go back and set up home and get into government. And my mother's ex-husband became the deputy foreign minister in South Africa. I think he was deputy foreign minister. So that was the house of activism, and it was also a big. It was a big Labour house. It was a Victorian building, and it was divided into 6 flats. So they, as a corporation, bought the building. So I think they all got their flat for like 6,000 or something. And now it's a leafy suburb in Islington, and it was recently sold for over $1 million. The one flat that we used to live in. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. It was they used to have house meetings, and everything was run really well. There was a lot of so my mum was a single mother, and we live up the top flat, and there was a door, like 2 doors, very thin together. You could just about stand a sweeping brush in between the 2 doors. If you opened that door and opened the next door, it opened into next door's house, and there was another single mother there with her son. So we became best friends. So there was always, like, if Mum was going out, the 2 doors would be left open, and the other mother would keep an eye on stuff. It was a lovely it was almost like a mehel sort of an idea. Do you know what I mean? Took turns in tending the garden, and it was lovely.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a cooperative kind of community living in an urban environment, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so how did these influences come to affect you in your own journey, and like, as you grew up and maybe into your teens, what was the kind of young adult, what was she like starting to take shape in the world?
So I kind of moved over at a really weird time. So I moved over just after my A-levels. What age was I? I was just turning 18, I think. So I never really got to be an adult in London with the friends I'd grown up with. But I was coming home to Clare, where I've been coming since I was a kid. And it was like, all of a sudden, it was like, I hadn't enough points to do anything in college, or I kind of was a bit of a waster in school, to be honest. I was daydreaming, but I was very good at art. I was very good at English literature and drama. But my music teacher, I have a report somewhere from my music teacher telling in the report that I had a note in my head, basically. I don't know why she hasn't a note in her head.
Wow.
But yeah, I did find in schools, and I'm hoping it's different now, that if you weren't academic, when I was back in school in England, that they just honed in on the academic stuff, and it was like your drama and your art and all that kind of stuff was kind of like a filler subject, you know, rather than something that should be nurtured and all that stuff. So I landed over in Ireland in a big truck full of moving stuff into a house. It was a big upheaval, even though it was welcomed, and I can see the benefits of it now. Do you know what I mean? But it was like I'd no qualifications to do any college or uni or anything like that. I hadn't a clue what I was doing. So I went on the dole for a while, and my mother was going out working. So she was like, basically, I'm going out working, and you have to, you can mind the house and cook dinners. I didn't know how to boil an egg, lads. I didn't know how to boil an egg. So I had to learn from literally scratch. But I learned quickly, you know, and I'm not a bad cook now, you know, but I'd have the dinner and look after the house, and we had grand, we were gone fine. But I was I know I was a bit, maybe I had my rebellious years when I was 18 rather than before I was 18, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I wanted to break loose a bit when I got to 18. So I suppose musically, I don't think, it was a long time where I didn't play much. I was too busy going out and looking at boys and acting the maggot, you know. But then, like, yeah, I'm getting lost in my own story here. I'm like, what am I saying?
And so do you feel like you were lacking a kind of a musical mentor or invitation to participate, or was just the interest just wasn't there?
It was really weird because back in London, I'd done quite a few. I didn't think they were amazing at the time, because now I look back and I go, jeepers. Like, I joined Ron Kavanagh's band, Alias, and we played Glastonbury, and I was 14. I also recorded at Abbey Road Studios with Gary Kemp or Martin Kemp now. I can't remember, one of the Kemps. And that was mad. Like, when I think back, I was like, look at Abbey Road Studios, like, you know. It's only now I'm kind of going, wow. So music was going quite well. And then I had to leave, you know, so I didn't know what was ahead of me over here. And I suppose maybe it took a couple of years just to get, you know, to get my footing, even though I'd come to a place that I considered home all my life. My dad was here. Most of my friends were here. But we'd left London for good, every stick of furniture. So that was gone. And I was in Clare, and it was like, it took a couple of years to settle down and find my place. You know, it was very weird, because when you go over here on holidays, people would be saying, when are you home again? And then when you're there. You're like, what do I do now? Do you know? So a few years I've been a bit of a lunatic and doing what you do when you're in your late teens, early 20s. Tried college, tried to do a chef's course. Says the girl who couldn't boil an egg, you know. I think I just did that because I had to do something.
Where was that?
In Galway.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so did you stay in Galway for a while, or it just didn't work out, or how did it play out?
Galway didn't really work out. I think I was there because I didn't know what else I should be doing, or I felt I should do something rather than wanting to do it, if that makes any sense.
Would you say that you were, you know, lost and drifting, or like?
Big time, yeah. Yeah, it was quite confusing for a while. But no, I got quite down when I was in Galway, and quite depressed, and I had to ring my dad one night to come and get me. You know, I was in a bad place, and I rang him, and he was in Cork, and by Jesus, he was there so fast, and packed up. That was it. Like, I didn't go back.
Yeah. And would you
21, I think that was when I turned 21. I was in Galway.
Would you say that moment did it bring any sense of it being a turning point for you? Was there anything that came out of it?
No, to be honest, I just knew what I didn't want to do at that stage. But that, if I'm only being honest, because you've asked the question, that kind of catapult, because I felt adrift and out of, what did you call me? I was out at sea and adrift. Like I'd no kind of anchor. I'd nothing. I felt I'd nothing holding me. Do you know, it was really quite strange. But so what happened then was I fell in love with the first person that showed me a bit of affection, and that was my anchor then. And it didn't have a great outcome, but I have a beautiful 12-year-old daughter, and it was a weird few years. I think I'm only just now getting back to myself in the last couple of years. There's a big blur. There's like a big blur of years almost. I mean, I went on the drink fairly heavy after my marriage broke up. My dad died. That happened in the space of 6 weeks. So
yeah,
T10, I just went. You know, I gave up drinking 4 years ago. Because it wasn't serving me. It wasn't. I was very depressed. I was, I had a little girl, like I said here, and the weekends I couldn't sit in my own company here in the house when she was gone to her dad's. I just have to be gone. And of course I'd go and I'd end up partying, and then, she'd come back from her dad's, and then I'd be suffering Monday, Tuesday, coming back to myself Wednesday, and then wishing for the weekend to come again. So it was almost like I wasn't enjoying being a mother. I wasn't happy in myself.
Yeah.
So I gave it up, and it was the best thing I ever did for myself. I wouldn't be judging anyone else. And Jesus, if I could have the few pints and just leave it at that, then grand. But I was a party animal, and then like the music kind of took off weirdly. I started to remember sessions, and it was quite weird because I realized when I gave up the drink that I was actually quite self-conscious. So here I was, I'd no crutch, we'll say, to get, the confidence. And I started doing a few gigs, and I was driving to the gigs, not drinking, which was brilliant. And the confidence started building. So I was like, okay, I'm able to do this. I don't need help. I can do this. And it was kind of a revelation to me in that way. That's when I started kind of living life more fully and facing my demons as I was, without any kind of, help from any drugs or drink or, So that's where I'm at the moment, is just trying to. So I'm doing lots of things. I'm doing an archaeology course at the moment, part-time. I'm doing little bits of art at home, and I'm just trying to do nice things and have a nice life.
I mean, there's a lot to be said for it, isn't there? Just the simple things and nice things. And I'm just, if you can go back for a minute to when you say, I was struck by what you said there, that almost that when the drink stopped, the music started kind of thing. You didn't say it quite like that, but it sounded like there was a correlation there, or something was, that the drink, perhaps the image I got was that the drink had clouded or prevented the music from coming forward.
Yeah, it definitely did with the singing. I can remember people coming in and I'd just come in to the bar and sit down in the session, and someone would go, "Sing a song, Katie," and I'd be like, "Oh Jesus, I can't. Give me a few of these first, and then I'll sing." I wasn't able to sing without.
Okay, yeah.
But the session, I mean, we've had some fabulous, mad, dangerous sessions of music.
Dangerous sessions.
Yeah. They're dangerous, just like hell for leather, and wonderful sessions while I've been drinking, and they've been magic.
Yeah.
But I suppose my first time realizing that, wow, this is what the buzz is supposed to be like, was my first Milltown with no drink.
Mm.
So I was like, oh, like all of my friends, all the people that I love and that I meet, they all, our gang will say, we all kind of occupy the Malbay every year for years, and the back room, and the day where there'd be certain things going on. And I remember thinking, I will try and go to Milltown. I will try, but I won't go to the Malbay because, Jesus, it's going to be, it's going to be too dangerous, and I'll go to Freels and I'll go to other places. But I did. I bought myself a new whistle, and I went straight to the Malbay, and I sat and I played tunes for 14 hours. And I got into my car and I drove away home. And I remember just driving out of the town, just with a big smile on my face, just kind of going, like, that was such a buzz. And that was a real revelation for me, just to have that buzz. And pure naturally,
14 hours, that's a serious go.
That's not serious at all.
Love it. Wow. So what did it look like when you say that the music took off? What does that mean?
I suppose the music took off in a way that I was now doing gigs, pub gigs, and I was singing a lot more. And I'd always wanted to make a CD. PJ Curtis told me when I was in my early 20s that I should make a CD, and it had been, I always had the feeling that it was there and it was something that I had to get out there. But I was never in the frame of mind, or I never had the confidence to do it or to make a start at doing it. And so I was thinking of doing it, and a great friend of mine, Peter Reeds, he's in Finbar Fury's band. He says to me, when you do the CD, it's about 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, I don't know how many years ago. He said, when you do the CD, will you let me produce one of the tracks? And I was like, Jesus, that would be great. And so we put our heads together and we said, what will we record? And we decided together that we'd record one of Finbar's songs. Finbar had said, I used to nag him to sing this song. I remember you singing this song, Matt, and he sung it into my ear in O'Connor's in Doolin one night, and I was like, oh my God, what's that? It just had such a, it was so heartfelt, and it just very poignant, and so I was nagging him to sing it, and eventually he said, do you know what you'll do now? He said, you sing it, you record it. So I was like, okay. So then Peter asked me, what, will we do a track? And I was like, well, let's do that one, because he's the link. Finbar was the link between the two of us anyway, so it was a nice thing to do. So that started a two-year project, recording my debut album. And I was getting the green bus up to Dublin every now and again, and we kind of myself and Peter fitted it in around our own lives. So it wasn't picking up the phone and saying, I want to book the studio for 4 days. It was like, we'd be on the phone chatting, and we'd say, does it suit you this day? I mean, things happened and life kind of happens. So we just fitted it around ourselves and did ourselves under any pressure. So
it sounds like you really worked in the flow of it and enjoyed it. You didn't put yourselves under great pressure.
Yeah. And we had fun. We had fun doing it. I mean, I landed in there one day a little bit early, and John Sheehan was in there from the Dubliners.
Yeah.
So I was like, Peter, can I ask him if we can play the Merino Waltz together? So we did. We stood in the hallway and we played the Merino Waltz.
Ah, fantastic. Love it.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So the album eventually came out, and the next thing the next thing I know, I've heard you on national radio several times, and did that take you by surprise?
It did, because it's mad to be driving along the road and have Radio 1 on, and next thing John Creedon's playing you on the radio. Oh my God. Yeah.
He really seemed to take a great interest and become a champion. Yeah.
Oh, but himself and Fake Your Bronan both play me quite a lot. And Aidan Butler has been brilliant as well.
Yeah, they're great champions for Irish music, all of them, aren't they?
Yeah, and women as well. I mean, you see the balance when they showed the statistics. They have a kind of 50-50 balance on RTE radio, and the rest of the radio stations are kind of like down there somewhere when it comes to Irish and females. And yeah, so still get taken aback when I hear myself on the radio. I kind of go, you know. So it's you know, it was a great sense of achievement to get the CD out there. And you know, if I never do anything again, I'm delighted that I did that. And I've met some really wonderful people and enjoyed the whole process, really. I think because I never thought of myself as a serious singer. You know, I'd play tunes. I was a whistle player. I'd sing the odd song if I had enough points in me or whatever. And I never, even though I had witnessed people crying when I'd sang, it's like I refused to believe that I was any good, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
To get the CD out there and finally have that ticked off the list of things I'd like to do. It's done so much for me, really, for my confidence, for everything. Like I remember the first time I was ever interviewed, and it was a Cayley House in Kilfenora, and Kieran, the first question you asked me there earlier, Kieran Hanrahan asked me the same question. And I'd sang my song, and that was grand. I thought, that's grand, I can go now, you know. He comes over with the fuzzy microphone. And I'm like, where are you going? He comes over and says, so, Katie Theasby, that's an unusual name. What brings you here? And I was like, my mother. I couldn't do it. Couldn't speak in an interview for love nor money. I was so self-conscious, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, through music you found your voice as a person. I suppose that's come up with Tommy Hayes and other people around the often underappreciated therapeutic benefits of art and music and creativity, that it can transcend and transform.
Absolutely. And that makes you think back then to when I was talking about school and the non-academic subjects, what a difference it would have made to so many people's lives if they had seen those as equally important.
Yeah.
If not more so. Because they're like, art and music is, sure, it's everywhere, isn't it? It's on, if you walk in the kitchen, the radio's on, there's art, you know, in everything we see, you know. And it's like, if we were taught that from an early age, that of its importance and its benefits, then there might be a lot less depression out there and a lot more people expressing themselves through it. You know, when you sit down with an instrument at home or even on stage, if I'm singing on stage, I close my eyes. Part of it's because I'm self-conscious, but the other part of it is I'm gone. When my eyes close, I'm gone. I'm somewhere else. I'm in that story. Do you know? And you know, it's I think I heard so many musicians say, lads, thanks be to God we have the music. Do you know? Because they're like, what else? How? This is what's getting us through. We're playing this music, you know, or we're doing this art or whatever. Because it really is. It is therapeutic, and it's a way to let your real self out, I suppose. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you kind of hone your craft or invest in it? Are you someone who practices, studies, trains? Where do you find the music? Do you just roll with the flow of it, and it comes to you when it comes to you, and it comes out to you when it comes out to you?
What's weird about it, I suppose, I'd have to put the instrumental, the trad in one box, and then the singing in another box, I suppose, because like obviously when you're playing trad, you're playing some tunes are hundreds of years old, and there's like stock tunes that loads of people will know, and then there's the more modern tunes and the more, you know, but you sit in a session and there's a companion, it's collective, and you're all playing together and you're all playing the same tune, and and when you're singing you nearly have to you're the instigator. You're the person who decides what song is going to come out of your mouth, and whether the feel is right in the room, or so with the singing, I was always very choosy, I suppose, as to the songs that I learned, because I wouldn't choose to learn a song unless it would have to affect me. I'd have to hear it and just go, wow, that's really, I have to learn that. I want to be able to pass on that feeling that that song gave me, do you know, in a way. I can, because we're only a vehicle for it, do you know. We're like, I don't even know what the word, I can't think of my words. I was up too late watching the goings on in the world. So
not to worry. I get a sense that like we're only like maybe a messenger, you know, or a
yeah, like a messenger, or like just like a vehicle for it, like
yeah,
you know. So I'd learn. That's why I suppose for my repertoire isn't huge. Like what I listen to is massive, but what I sing is not huge. I remember I had about 4 songs for years, you know, and I've learned more now, obviously, and I learn by ear. So I'll have it when something just catches me, and I go, right, I really love that, and I have to learn it. I'll play it. My car probably is the place where I learn most of my music, because if I love a song, I'm going to play it again and again and again anyway. So it goes into your pores and stuff, you know. And writing wise, I've only written 1 song, and that came about because I did a songwriting workshop with John Spillane in Doolin a couple of years ago, and we had to do this stream of consciousness about the subject that we picked, or the image that we had in our head. And I looked down at the page, and there was his snippet that was like, I like that. And then the music, which I've never written music before. I mean, I haven't sat down and written music, but I have composed stuff in my head without writing it down, and just played freestyle and stuff. But the melody kind of came song, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Really weird. It was no effort to write it. It was like it was there.
Yeah. So I'm getting a kind of feeling that this is perhaps that's a whole nother part of the journey to continue, that songwriting may become a thing, or perhaps it is already. Is there anything stirring?
With Cheapers, there hasn't been. The last few months, it's been a bit like we've never been given a chunk of time in our lives before.
Yeah, well, it doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite work like that sometimes. Yeah.
And then the muse just gets up and leaves. You're like, oh, come back, I'll be here for months.
Yeah.
Nothing. But I think, like if you're an artist or a songwriter, I think you need to dedicate at least 10 minutes to it every day. Say, for example, if you're an artist, you know, your drawing is key. So you get out your sketchbook and your pencil and draw images every day.
Keep the muscle worked.
Yeah. So I've just started another online songwriters thing with John Spillane again. So
Brilliant.
Tuesday night, and there was every person was there, like more or less had a song at the end of it. Unreal.
Yeah. Fantastic. I mean, it's one of those things that it sounds like it could be so unattainable to many people, but it might be just sitting in front of you if you go scratch.
Yeah. My thing was, people always ask me, so do you not write your own songs? And I used to go, no, sure, there's loads of songs out there that need to be given new life to, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
which is true. But part of me was kind of going, I could try it. I had such respect for songwriters.
Yeah. And
to put it, to write it, to put music to it, and then to put it out there for people to either love it or tear it apart. That's when you put it out there, it's out there.
Yeah.
No.
And so I wonder, therefore, that whole part of the kind of healing journey in oneself, to be ready to put something out is another element, perhaps, you know. that you're ready to face the world on your own terms.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look at it like that, there's a lot of that in it. Like I think I did the song I wrote myself was about my dad, and it was around the time of his 10 years anniversary. And it was like, I know I had an album out, you know, he's gone, so he doesn't have any idea about you know, I can just imagine how proud he'd be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I suppose there's a few little memories and a few little images going around in my head about from my childhood with my dad, and I just wanted to put them down in a song. It was just like, this is for you, like, and I have to do this, and I did it, and it was amazing to actually have done what I envied for so many years of other singer-songwriters, was to write a song and to have it on national radio as well. That was unreal. Like hearing yourself singing a song that someone else wrote, that's unreal. But then like your own song on there, just like, it must be good. It must be okay. Do you know? It's validation, I suppose, and in a way too. You know, if I'm brutally honest, isn't it? A lot of what we do, it's human nature. It's for feedback, for positive feedback sometimes, and validation. I'd be lying if I didn't say that. Like,
yeah.
You know?
Well, that's it. I mean, look at it, like the best validation is self-validation, but it's lovely to get it mirrored back, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, listen, Katie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, and I look forward to catching up again, and hopefully we'll have lots more songs out of you in the next while, or in good time. Whenever they come, they come.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rory. It's been great talking to you.
Good on you. Thanks, Katie.
Okay, good luck.